Hello again in this video clip series. My journey to God in a very secularized world. It should be video clip number 105. I would like to finish a little talk. We've been talking about this fundamental battle of who decides the truth. God, or man, the world, the devil. Who's in charge? And I'd just like to finish that and then go on with other things. There's a rather strong statement that relativism, according to Pope Benedict XVI, he said, is the most profound difficulty of our time. In his homily at the Mass preceding the conclave that quickly elected him Pope Benedict XVI, then Cardinal Ratzinger said, he said, listen, this is very succinct because he's very intelligent. He says, today, having a clear faith based on the creed of the Church is often labeled as fundamentalism. My princesses, do you remember that? I talked about how Pope Francis wants to accuse all that have exactly this, have a clear faith on the creed of the Catholic Church. Pope Francis wants to accuse of being rigid. Look at how exactly opposite of the good true popes with what we got now with Cardinal Bergoglio. He says, again, today having a clear faith based on the creed of the Church is often labeled as fundamentalism, whereas relativism, that is, letting oneself be tossed here and there, carried about by every wind of doctrine, anything goes, seems the only attitude that can cope with modern times. We're building a dictatorship. When he says cope with modern times, you know, what comes to mind here also is that so many people have lost the faith. So many people have thrown out the Ten Commandments. And so many people are so far away from God that they just say, well, it's impossible to live it's impossible, so let's just do whatever we want and that's okay. I mean, we've just thrown it all out. I want to recall, you know, what Jesus said in Gospel of Mark chapter 10, when also the apostles couldn't believe what Jesus was saying, and Jesus said to them, with God everything's possible, with man nothing is possible. Modern man does not want to trust God. With God everything's possible. Modern man trusts himself, and thus nothing is possible. So we just go along with anything you want. There's no more rules. So I finish this. He says, whereas relativism, that is, letting oneself be tossed here and there, carried about by every wind of doctrine, seems the only attitude that can cope with modern times. And he finishes saying, we are building a dictatorship of relativism that does not recognize anything as definitive and whose ultimate goal consists solely of one's own ego and desires. That's exactly where in hell. In heaven, people are so happy to obey God because it's the best thing for us. God gave us the Ten Commandments for our good, not for our harm. We're totally so far away that the main trend just, the devil has pushed the world so far, so he's just saying, let it all go, come to me in hell. That's really what's going on. And no one wants to say, I trust in God. With God we can do it. No one wants to say that because they don't want to suffer. They don't want to follow Jesus with the cross. Today, a great number of Catholics want, with the blessing, at least tacitly, of the priests and bishops, a Christianity without the cross. And without these what they call guilt complexes that were called sin. They call it guilt complexes. Sin is not doing the will of God, which is the thing that destroys us. And they're calling it guilt complexes because they don't want anything to be any inhibitions. I want to do whatever I want, and I don't care what God says. Even though what God says is for my best. You know, it's like rebellious kids who totally don't obey parents, even though the parents told them what to do was their best for them. Everybody wants to rebel against God now, rebel against authority, everything. And thus, very few Catholics today go to confession, and many go to the psychiatrist, which costs much more than to confess one's sins to a priest, who often, unfortunately, is not found in the confessional in the churches. That's where we're at. But many who still go to confession do not understand anymore what is a sin according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, because very few priests today take the risk of their primary job to help the souls identify and cure the mortal sicknesses of the soul, are called mortal sins. The secretary of the Congregation for Clergy in 2009, Archbishop Mauro Piacenza, he had lamented that many faithful no longer confess their sins. That he said this on June 5th, 2009 on Vatican Radio. This Archbishop Piacenza said, the sacrament of penance has been experiencing a deep crisis for decades. Piacenza, an official for the Vatican Office on Clergy, says fewer people distinguish between good and evil, and as a result, do not go to confession. The Archbishop said in an interview that if faithful do not have a sense of sin, they might confuse confession with the couch of a psychologist or a psychiatrist. He says the Vatican plans to publish this year, 2009, a vademecum for confessors and spiritual directors. Echo, that's where we're at, but don't give up, because as I said, as Jesus says, with God everything's possible, with man nothing's possible. So if we truly trust in God and obey Him, we will make it to heaven, for sure. Even though it'll be difficult, we'll have to suffer and everything else, but I don't want to spend hell in eternity. I repeat, one instant, if we saw one instant heaven while we're here on earth, we would die immediately of joy. If we saw one instant of hell, we would die immediately of horror. There's two extremes after life. There's nothing in the middle. You're totally happy or totally in misery for eternity. So it's worth the pain to do whatever we got to do in these few years to get to heaven. Oh, let's go. I would like now to maybe switch the topic here and begin an article that I wrote. It's called Judgment, Heaven, Hell, Eternity. Many, some priests, St. Ignatius of Loyola and a lot of other saints, and even Jesus himself to Faustina, said that many times when people are so far away from God, almost the only thing left is to tell them that, look, if you keep going like this, eternity is going to be terrible, and explain to them well. That's why Our Lady of Fatima showed the three kids hell in 2017, July. We're getting down to the last thing that we can help people before they die and will spend eternity separated from God. The three little children of Fatima were shown a vision of hell, as I said, July 2017. And the sweet Blessed Virgin Mary, in her kindness, prepared them for the sight of this by promising them ahead of time that she was going to take them to heaven. Otherwise, they couldn't have endured it. Lucy declared that after the vision, that they would have died of fright if there had not been a particular grace from God. Our Lady after seeing that great sea of fire filled with the demons and lost souls in pain and despair, the little children of Fatima looked up to the Blessed Virgin Mary, who said to them so kindly and so sadly, she said, "You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wishes to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart." She said, "If what I say to you is done, many souls will be saved, and there will be peace. For my good people, dear friends, we can do this. It's possible. God would not give us, tell us, or Our Lady would, if it was not possible. Every single one of us has in our power to help our Blessed Mother to save souls and to bring peace to this world. It's the truth. We have the power to help our sweet Mother Mary. She's begging us for this. May God bless you and Mary guide you.